Whether you have just purchased the Husqvarna Viking Amber S100 or you're looking to purchase this machine, I'm going to show you how easy it is to thread the 4-thread overlock, and this will give you an idea of just how simple things have gotten over the years. You are going to see that I am using a good quality serger thread that's going to make a difference, and we've got links below where you can check out some of the thread that will truly make any serger just run so much smoother. So do keep in mind that thread does make a difference. I also am going to do color-coded threads, and I always recommend this for our students as they get started, is go ahead and put a green in the green and a red in the red. And in that way, as you're kind of learning where all those stitches form and how to look at them, are they correct when you're done, you can identify which thread is doing what, and then again, your samples are kind of color-coded as you get started. Keep in mind, a great beginning project is a pillowcase, by the way. And it's so fun to do a pillowcase out of fun fabrics, and honestly, it doesn't matter what color thread you use. So even if you've bought some extra spools for doing just that, color coding your first time using a serger, you will find that you can use those in just about any of your fabrics. So first thing I have done is I have taken the little kind of cone holders out of the accessory bag and kind of laid them up here so they can kind of go up through the middle and stabilize the cones. Then that way they don't vibrate around as much. So that's first. Second, go ahead and pull this up as high as it'll go. Note, when you are not using the serger, you can push that down. The handle's right there, so super easy, even to push that down when it's all threaded up. I am going to go ahead and open up both the front door and ta-da, the side door. So this little lever here is what you push down and it opens up. This is why I love this serger. Super basic, not all the fancy frills, but it is so much easier to thread when this opens up, and this is one of the sergers that do. Keep your tweezers handy. Sometimes it's just easier to kind of hook everything in. Everything is color-coded, plus the little diagram here will kind of follow along. The one thing I will tell you is a serger does work best if it is threaded in this exact order. We're going to start with the upper looper first. Now that happens to be the red one, and I'm going to be using pink thread. So as I come over to the top, I do love that all the guides on this serger are open, meaning I can always, like if I miss one or I don't get it in all the way, I can always go back and just kind of hook it back in. I don't have to start over. There is on the top back here is a guide for each thread, so just make sure you kind of take it in 2 hands and click it over. Now, I would recommend that you kind of thread with the presser foot in the up position. It doesn't matter as much on this serger. What you do need to do is each time you lay the thread down in the tension area, you need to hold and pull. I need you to drop that in all the way. If you don't and it lays there, it's not really in it, so that becomes a problem. As we come down, we are just catching each of the guides that are red. So as we come here, I will turn the hand wheel towards us here. It doesn't really matter, but it's kind of fun to see everything moving. But I am going to bring the upper looper a little higher so you can see where I am threading this thread through. The upper looper is the one with the little point that comes kind of above the presser foot. I'm going to lower it just so you can kind of see it kind of comes in front of the needles, but the very end of it has a hole. Now, it might not look like a very big hole, but I will tell you that's where decorative threads can be placed. You can also do up to 1/8 of an inch ribbon, like a silk ribbon, maybe not so much a craft ribbon, but it is actually quite large. As we come through here, this little red dot just indicates that it's kind of laying across there. And there's one little twirly guide here that as we slide it in, you want to make sure that the thread is always passing directly through the guide. So on this one, hold it straight up and take the top part of the thread and loop it around. So can you see it's just going up through this? It's not wrapping around it. And this is where I love to take the tweezers and just kind of use it as the extension of my fingers. So often I'll take my thread, put it so it's kind of sticking out from the end, and then I can just push it through that upper looper hole. Where do we put this thread? You can put it just about anywhere. Now, as I was pulling that through, it actually hooked into the green one. So let's just unhook them, just as easy. Good. So I'm going to just lay this over the top here. It could go out the back, but honestly, until we take a stitch, it really doesn't matter where it's all set. Upper looper is threaded first, lower looper, the green one, is threaded second, and the needles are threaded last. If you do it in that order all the time, it really will answer and solve any troubles that you might run into. Something goes wrong with your serger, one thread breaks, you kind of need to do this again. Thread the upper looper, the lower looper, and then the needles. We'll clarify that, but that is so important to kind of get everybody back into the order that it's supposed to be in. The lower looper is practically as easy as the upper looper because of this door being completely open. Catch that guide in the back. Go ahead and give it a good flossing into the tension disc. Let's just come down here to its first guide. Again, I'm going to kind of use my tweezers to help it get pulled in there. That one seems a little tough today, but I'm going to just get it a little help. Now it's in. Great. The green one is open underneath, so just lift up. We're coming over to this side, and then we're coming to this back area before going through the lower looper eye. So we're just catching each of these guides. And again, if this hadn't opened up, this becomes kind of a really dark area to thread, and it sometimes is where people get hung up. At this point, turn the hand wheel so your needles come all the way into the down position. You're going to expose a part way back here, kind of the back elbow of the lower looper. That needs to be threaded. That's the little area that people tend to miss, but we can easily see it just by turning the hand wheel. Let's go ahead and take our thread and thread it through the lower looper eye. Notice that I've kind of positioned the loopers so they're kind of crisscrossed like swords. And because this is the second one, when we go through this, it kind of goes up and over the pink one. So that makes it just a little bit obvious which way it's going. Once again, I've kind of hooked it underneath. That can always happen, so just watch that you always are having the thread going where you want. Now here's one little guy I like to just look at. When my students thread their sergers, I'm always looking to see that this thread lays in this kind of groove that indicates that the back elbow that we just kind of hooked it around was caught and the thread is laying properly and has been threaded. That is the hardest part of the serger. Was that very hard? No, it wasn't. So this is something that you can easily go back, cut all your threads, practice, and before you know it, this becomes just kind of second nature, and people aren't as scared of their sergers when they sit down at it from time to time. Let's do the needles next. They're practically like threading a sewing machine twice. Since we're done with this area, we can go ahead and close up these doors. The order of the needles does not matter. So you can thread the right one first or the left one first. Just again, make sure you give it a good little pull down through those tension areas. We're catching the first guide right here at the lower part of the tension. And then this is almost like a take-up lever. So we're going to come underneath and then over the top of those two little arms. And then there is a guide at the top of the needle. So this one being the right needle. We're going to go around the right side of this. And while I'm right here, I'm going to go ahead and thread the other needle and bring them simultaneously back down to, so I can do the needles side by side. So it has one guide at the top here. Click it behind. Again, this one will follow the same path the blue one did, just kind of under the arm and across. This one being the left needle, I'm going to come around the back side on the left side. So here is how that little needle threader works. I am going to show you. Once again, this is optional. It does not come with this machine, but it is so much easier than trying to thread needles the old-fashioned way. And once you get used to it, it's like, oh wow, that's just awesome and quick. The way a needle threader works is first you have to hold it correctly. On one side, there's a little notch which needs to be on top. Or if you turn it 180 degrees, there's another notch on the other side and it could be on top as well. when we kind of do a little plunge to this, there's a little tongue that's going to slide down the needle and then plunge it into the eye at the bottom. So to position the thread, keep in mind the mark is on the top and the thread needs to go in the needle threader side to side. If you think of like a horse's bridle, that is exactly how this is all lining up. The thread goes side to side. And as you come down, now this is kind of at a little bit of an angle because of the way the foot is here, but as you push down, the little tongue sits into the groove of the needle. As you slide all the way down, the tongue will just slip a loop of thread through the needle, and you could use your tweezers to pull it right on through. Now, let's do that one more time. Find the notch on the needle threader, make sure it's on top, place the thread across its mouth here, okay? Bring it around. And did you notice I just kind of gently set the needle threader against the needle, and it kind of just stops in that groove. And then as I slide down, when I get to the hole, you can just plunge it in, and it leaves the loop to pull through. Now our serger has 4 individual threads, and all going different directions, like my needles ended up over here today. So how are we going to get this all connected so that chain is what you see next? I like to take my fabric, fold it in half, and you're going to see me always serging off the fold. That way I can kind of open it up, see where everything is. Now, right now, all those threads are individual. If you want to, you could lift up the presser foot and slide the fabric underneath. Now, I only do this on the first time I'm using a serger because that means that the first stitch it takes, I can even do it by hand. I can just take the first few stitches and kind of watch that all my threads are coming together. Then, when I step on my foot control, it's going to go ahead and finish. And to easily cut the thread when you're done, if you run a little kind of chain, and yes, all of our individual threads are coming out as well, so if you want to help them along, you sure can. Or if they're kind of, I see one is just kind of holding out here, so I can just kind of pull it through. You can then bring that chain around and let the knife cut it off. I'm going to do that quite a bit. So here is our chain all together. Now I'm going to take it from the top. Slide it up to the foot. Notice the presser foot was down. It was down, so I didn't make a note of that, but you do need to lower that down before you stitch. You will find that you can just now put the fabric right up to the foot. It will take it in, and whatever is hanging off the side gets cut off, and we now have the perfect stitch all the way through. So we have our upper looper is the pink going back and forth. We've got our lower looper on the back side, which is our lime green. Our 2 needles are creating that seam. So this is a one and done seam. It's sewn, it's overlocked and cut all in one pass. So it's super easy to do. A 4-thread overlock is going to be your go-to construction seam. But coming up next is we're going to get into all the other stitches that the Husqvarna Viking Amber S100 is capable of doing. Check out the playlist in the description below where all the videos are lined up in the order to watch them in to learn and master your serger from start to finish.